a little underway there. I'm going to go ahead and guess that Kyle was on the play.
Oh, wow.
He has 4 permanents.
Look at how many
Jeff's
permanents
1.
he has. Jeff rocking the scarf. The scarf is just, it's become a Magic staple, really.
It has. Jeff has actually been rocking the scarf for a while. I'll give him credit.
He was one of the innovators of the scarf
wearing
technology.
A scarf when I first saw him, which was the Des Moines Standard Open, where he notched a top 8 with Bug Glisten.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that
Jeff
card.
likes to brew.
No kidding.
Can respect. A turn 2 Thalia is going to really slow Jeff down, considering his deck is 20 spells.
I was about to say, Thalia on the play is quite good against the, Think Twice Essence Scatter deck.
Syncopate just got a lot worse.
Yes.
And it wasn't very impressive to start with.
You gotta assume those are coming out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, just
Kyle.
Just these. This is all I
A
have.
little bit of a shortcut there.
Only these.
This one, and then this one.
So, Battalion gonna be active next turn, it looks like.
Is Jeff going to be active next turn?
That's
the real question.
I think we might be off to a pretty fast start into game 2 here. Yep.
The old turn 3 kill, effectively.
Yeah. Well, the Naya Blitz
Turn 3
deck.
unbeatable.
Yeah, the turn 3 unbeatable. Naya Blitz deck is so fast, and when it wins the roll, it can just get out of control. Like, very few decks can keep pace with a Naya Blitz deck that wins the roll and doesn't mulligan.
Yeah, that's very true. When you turn on Battalion that quickly, you really need something like Flames of the Firebrand is the card I've actually been playing online.
That's legit.
To flip things around. But Thalia, again, like in that particular game, just too disruptive for really any spell to be good enough beyond like turn 1 shock.
Right, yeah, you need things like Pillar and Spear, but, I mean, the Thalia basically putting you a whole turn back, and you being a turn behind from being on the draw, and the Naya Blitz deck being a turn ahead from playing 2 guys in a turn thanks to Emissary. Like, it's just too many, little virtual time walks in the early game, and yeah, Jeff just succumbed like so many others have in the format.
Oh, that whole match took about 4 minutes, or
Yeah.
game, sorry. So we'll probably have time to move on to a second match, regardless of how this one goes at this point. Moving over to the sideboard, Kyle actually has Flames of the Firebrand.
I was about to say, look at that. He took a page out of the Glenn Jones technology book there. He also has Bonds of Faith, Fiend Hunters, and Nairheath Pilgrims. So, he's pretty prepared for, aggressive style decks. But
yeah, I like that.
the creature removal happens to be very good against Jeff's sort of mid-rangey control deck because so much of its board control, rather than Wrath of God variants like Supreme Verdict, is just trying to play bigger creatures and outclass the Blitz.
Interestingly, Kyle's really he went into a sideboard. It looks like he did the shuffle 15 in, shuffle 15 out, which is kind of interesting because we saw 2 cards from Jeff, Breeding Pool and Stomping Ground.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious as to where he thinks he is. It's possible he's not changing much, if anything. Just waiting to see what's up.
Yeah.
What
do you put Jeff on if you're Kyle?
I don't know. Maybe. Oof, it's tough.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think actually. The Breeding Pool really throws off just about everything. Right?
It could be like the Bant Run deck.
Yeah, maybe. I might believe
be...
that. With a really awkward start for me.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Yeah. If Kyle knows anything about Jeff, he probably knows that Jeff's just on something he doesn't expect, and I imagine he'll change very little.
Yeah.
He's probably figured out that he's the aggressor. Maybe he brings in a couple of those Boros Charms, cuts a couple of those Searing Spears, something like that.
Yeah.
That's about all I see. As far as Jeff, his Pillar Flames will probably be coming in, along with his Singleton Augur of Bolas, Rolling Temblars, obviously definitely a way to counter the Burning Tree Emissary advantage. And he has another Mizium Mortars, although I'm not actually sure how excited I would be to bring it in. He already has a bunch of removal spells that are effectively as good in Izzet Charm and Searing Spear, Izzet Charm being the weakest of those, but you can't just side in all removal, right?
Right,
you gotta have some kind of balance to it. So I imagine he'll be cutting out those Syncopates, the Dissipates, bringing in all the removal he's got, and I might even be interested in bringing in something like Garrick to just have a threat on turn 5.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to be think twicing my way to victory.
Exactly. A way to stabilize the board and turn it around and win the game, in a fast way. Once you stabilize you actually do need to kill the opponent. It's not
Oft forgotten.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, these white weenie decks or whatever of the past. This Naya Blitz deck can still win after you stabilize by just having like frontline medic, letting you attack with all your guys without sacrificing any and get a little damage through, and then, have some reach, and it's pretty easy to die if you're not careful.
Yep. One of my magic mantras has always been, the opponent's not going to kill themselves. It's generally true.
Somebody's got to do it, so...
Barring spoils of the vault.
I was gonna say, we might see some self-deaths tomorrow, but
yeah.
In Standard, it's pretty hard to kill yourself.
Yeah, really genuinely difficult. As far as the matchup, I think I have to give like just the matchup advantage, especially after winning the roll in game 1 to Kyle. Like, he gets another game on the play.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, as I said, the die roll for the Naya Blitz deck is so important, especially in this matchup. I feel like, Jeff's got a decent chance to win this one, but with Kyle back on the play in game 3, it's going to be tough.
Kyle has a spell-heavy hand here. I think he's only got 1 land. He's got 2 now.
I was going to say, he's on the draw, it's fine.
Oh, sure.
It's fine.
I mean, I'm not saying he shouldn't have kept it. I'm just saying. Turn 1 champion. I believe he has an experiment 1 in his hand as well. Yep. So he'll be able to grow that on the next turn. Assuming Jeff allows it to live.
Jeff's got some removal in hand in the form of Izzet Charm and Searing Spear. And some lands and a dude. What more could you really ask for?
Kyle drew a Thalia, and I think it's relevant to note he went for the Thalia this turn as opposed to Experiment 1, or Burning Tree Emissary into Experiment 1, which was kind of mediocre line.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, you can... As Kyle, you can assume that your Thalia is pretty good from just the way that game 1 went, Thalia being pretty much game over on turn 2. And so he just leads with the card that, slows his opponent down and gives him enough time to sort of dump his hand and try and overwhelm him.
Jeff passing here with Wolfear Avenger up. Wonder if Kyle's gonna smell it out. Nope.
Oh, doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it. But he does have a Searing Spear, but he doesn't have red mana.
He doesn't have red mana, and he also doesn't have 3 mana because of his own Thalia. Hoisted by his own petard.
Yeah, this is a pretty awkward one. This is the sort of like trick that works once though, right? Like,
yeah.
In game 3, Kyle's just never gonna get out here.
This is the advantage of brewing, right? Bringing an unknown archetype. Like, you see those lands, you're not gonna not attack into an empty board with your Thalia, right? But
yeah, it's definitely like pretty difficult to smell that out.
Exactly, and that's such a profitable exchange for Jeff because now he can play his spells at a reasonable clip, and also has the threat and like minimize Kyle's board presence all at the same time with a single card. That's exactly what he wanted.
Now he's got Yeva to basically pull the exact same trick twice.
Green Flash, man, I'm telling you. It's Green Flash.
This time I think Kyle might be a little more wary. He's like, come on, the guy has to have spells, right? Like,
yeah.
Turn 4 and he just shipped. He's not that afraid of me Searing Spearing his Wolfear Avenger when I missed my 3rd land drop.
Yeah, yeah.
So
there's it's unlikely that he's passing with 4 just to leave up regeneration mana.
Yeah.
There's got to be something up. And Kyle doesn't have the extra land for the frontline medic in his hand, which would allow him to sort of not worry anymore,
Yep.
Once you have frontline medic in play, you don't have to be scared of flash creatures because your guys can't die. So you just send them all and see what happens.
Going ahead and just double Emissary. He can Searing Spear if he wants. Nope, he's just going to pass phase, and yep, he gets got again.
Humph. We got a reader.
He's falling very quickly behind here. Really, I think we're just watching the die roll in action.
Yeah, for sure. And, this is what this matchup looks like. The Green Flash deck's creatures are so much bigger and better, but they cost a lot more. So being on the play, being able to get them out there before you're dead, that's what it takes. Little removal, bunch of big dudes, exactly like Jeff wrote it up.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised Jeff doesn't just like enter the race at this point, to be honest. Like, send both versus sending one, but like his opponent's locked on mana anyway.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a Think Twice in hand. I think he's just, he's pretty comfortable with this spot. He's just going to play it slow, and like he knows that he's the better late game deck, so he's fine going into a late game scenario. Now we see Spear, Think Twice. And 6 mana, Wrath U.
They're all dead.
Mizzium Mortars with Overload, the Plague Wind. It didn't kill Kyle's lands. He just decided that he was done with this game.
Yeah, and rightly so. Definitely, that game became pretty unwinnable pretty fast.
Kyle immediately going back to his sideboard.
Yeah.
I don't think that he quite knew what he was up against after game 1, but now that he's got a little more of an idea, I think that he's going to be able to adjust his deck properly and put up a better fight in game 3, especially going back on the play.
Mm-hmm. Returning to Kyle's sideboard, it's actually pretty interesting. We discussed a little bit about his anti-aggro package. It's obviously not that relevant in this matchup, but I think it's worth bringing up because he's got an additional land to go with, Flames of the Firebrand, Near-Eth Pilgrim, Fiend Hunters, and Boros Reckoner.
Right.
So that he's actually trying to shift into a pseudo-control deck against other aggressive decks.
Well, I mean, all of your main deck creatures cost 1 and 2, except for the frontline medic. I mean, once you are raising your curve, you're cutting 1s and 2s for 3s. You also need to compensate for your mana base, compensate for that in your mana base. And Clifftop Retreat in the sideboard, it's cute. I like it.
I don't think I've seen Clifftop Retreat in that particular column on the deck list sheet before.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, nice. I imagine he brings out probably the Boros Elite since he's going to be shifting gears.
Yeah.
And not triggering that battalion, and maybe Lightning Mauler's the other guy. So you got to bring out like at least 2 guys.
Those 2 do seem like the lowest impact cards that are the easiest to outclass. So I could easily see those coming out. Fiend Hunters and Boros Reckoners probably coming in. Oh, and Bonds of Faith is actually quite good.
Yeah. Given that it can go offense or defense.
Right. And against Jeff's game plan of stabilizing with bigger creatures, a 2-mana answer where you can just keep attacking right away is pretty important. Fiend Hunter, while it's a good sort of tempo play, it's not really hard removal because it's got a big target on its head, that Fiend Hunter with a Yeva underneath it, and
flashing in a second time.
Flashing in again off of a Searing Spear, coming right back and blocking. But Bonds of Faith is, I don't think that there's like a good answer to a Bonds of Faith on a Yeva, because it also, like a Bonds of Faith on a Yeva also shuts down the next Yeva.
Yep, that's very true. It'll keep it off the board via legend rolled. I could see Kyle bringing those in. Pretty reasonable line.
Yeah, and the Wolfir Avengers, you can't Searing Spear them really with regeneration. Yeah. So once again, another clean answer in Bonds of Faith. I think the Bonds of Faith is going to be one of the key cards for Kyle here, going into game 3.
Yeah, now that Kyle actually knows what tricks are up, he'll obviously be less likely to just run his guys into open mana.
Yeah.
But in some ways that plays into Jeff's plan with things like Think Twice and Is It Charm's other mode available. He can actually start, building an advantage while Kyle doesn't get in damage, which is, pretty good for him actually. I think we can see the genesis of the deck in that particular interaction.
For sure. Like, that's the classic, counter spells plus factor fiction or whatever.
Yeah.
If they cast their spell, then you counter, and if they don't and try and get sneaky, then like you still get to use all your mana and you're just out manaing them. The player who uses the more resources is generally going to win the game. So Kyle going to 6 here, and I also did see a Boros Elite in his opener. So either he finds them okay, or going back on the play, he thinks that he can just run them over
to that plan. Which I think is fine.
Yeah, is totally legitimate.
Jeff has kept a hand that's really weak to a Thalia. It's Mortars, Rolling Tumbler, Huntmaster, and lands. Turn 2 Thalia will really slow him down a lot.
But it's got everything he needs,
Yeah.
It's hard to send that back.
Turn 1 Experiment 1. Appropriate.
Yes.
Shock. Oh.
The other stomping
that wasn't
grounds.
A Rolling Tumbler. That was a F&M Promo Pillar of Flame.
Pillar of Flame.
Similar color composition, while his hand's significantly less weak to Thalia. Lightning Mauler.
Oh, the sad Lightning Mauler. Oof. The Goblin Piker.
This game looks great for Jeff already.
Yeah. I don't think that Kyle even has another creature, does he? He's got 3 lands and a spear. Not where he wants to be.
I think this might be what we generally see when we hear Naya Blitz described as a high variance deck.
Yes, this is the low side of the spectrum. And Jeff,
Snapcaster Mage for Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff with a bunch of spells: Huntmaster, Mizzium Mortars, Snapcaster, and a couple lands. I believe this game state is called Stabilized, and he didn't even have to work that hard for it.
No. Kyle's Mulligan did most of the heavy lifting. Flint of War, one of the better creatures he could find in this particular situation, given that it doesn't die to anything super easily. But Jeff does have an answer in Mizzium Mortars.
and Wolf Avenger, and Huntmaster, and Snapcaster.
He's going to burn the mortars. I like that.
Yeah, that's fine. As we've said, his hand is so good, his position is so good. Just preserve your life total and, make your land drops. Get to that late game stage where you're super favored, where you just play superior spell after superior spell while the opponent draws 1/1s for 1.
It's worth noting also the Overload has very little value when your opponent has passed a turn without playing a creature and then just immediately plays a creature they could have played last turn. They're peeling guys off the top. You're never going to get to kill 2 guys unless they just happen to draw more.
The split card of Terror and Plague Wind it was
they didn't
Terror
staple the Terror
time.
there, so you couldn't use it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's there.
So Spear hits the Huntmaster proper, but the Wolf gets in there.
Kyle with 7 mana. That's about 4 more mana than his deck needs to operate.
Yeah, I mean the deck plays very few lands. This build plays 20 lands, and that's not so that you draw 7 of them. Well, Kyle didn't attack into a Wolfir Avenger, but Jeff just played it and went on the offensive. It's going to be really hard for Kyle to win here.
He's going to send now, and he's going to get got by another one.
Another Wolfir Avenger,
Kyle's like, yeah,
and
whatever.
We're done. Yep.
That's the ball game. Well, a mulligan and a slow start for Kyle.
And a pretty good defensive curve from Jeff too.
Yeah,
the
pillar
into,
flame not being a rolling Templar.
into Is It Charm, into I don't even know if he did anything on 3, and then
no, yeah, he just played a tap land.
And then Mortars into Wolfir Avenger, just every turn playing a card that was superior to whatever Kyle had.
It's not that hard when you're just playing a bunch of 1/1 humans.
Yeah, exactly. Those are not hard to outclass. That is true.
The deck looks really good when it starts out. One of the interesting things is Kyle is actually playing without Giant Growths, which was one of the Naya innovations about a month ago or so. And I imagine Giant Growth actually much better in this matchup than just more random humans.
Yeah, the Giant Growth the idea behind it is not only does it save it from a Searing Spear, but it can also push it through a block of a bigger creature. Kyle does have 1 Gore-Clan Rampager, which is like a Giant Growth, but he didn't have it, and even if he did, I don't think it would have been enough that game.
Against the burn spells, the timing really essential for Giant Growth.
For sure.
It can play Lava Spike. It can play Avoid Fate.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good range for a Giant Growth in this day and age.
For sure. Giant Growth is a pretty versatile spell, I would say. Some simple words on the card, but a lot of applications. But
one of my favorite cards to pick in a Return to Ravnica draft by far, actually. I'm a big Giant Growth fan.
It's okay.
I've been known to first it over some pretty embarrassing things.
Sure.
I've also been known to side out one of my colors to bring in the Giant Growths that I cut.
The splashed Giant Growths? I can respect that.
Yep. I actually recall at GP San Jose, I was in one of the more successful team draft decks I had. I managed to 3-0 with my blue-white Flyers deck siding out one of my colors for Aerial Predations and Giant Growths, which just hates from the draft.
Just win in the air.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Yeah. I guess it's more like...
Well,
I'm not a butterfly. I was like a bunch of birds.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Eyes in the sky. All right, well, we're looking for another match to get set up. I believe we might
Some things are happening. Some people are moving.
Here. Yeah, people are excited. Well, so if you were playing today, AJ, I know you're want to occasionally play some Magic the Gathering.
What's that?
What standard deck do you think you'd be registering?
Well, I did play the Blitz deck online for a while, and while it was fun, I don't think it would have been my choice for this type of a field. I think I probably would have just played a Flash deck, like Jerry Thompson's Pro Tour Top 8 deck, just because that's more my play style, and I think it's okay right now. But had I tested, I believe the conclusion I would have come to, and I believe the right answer is actually Reanimator. I think Reanimator is really, really good right now, and I think it's pretty hard to play, so I would have liked to get a couple hours in, but watching a good Reanimator player play in this metagame, it feels like they're playing a modern deck in Standard.
Sure, I can agree with
that. That deck does some explosive things, it's pretty consistent, and it's everything is high impact across the board. It has some of the best sideboard options available, and people just aren't respecting it enough. There aren't enough sideboard cards. You know, going around talking to people about their decks or whatever, it's like, what do you have for Reanimator? They're like, oh, I have these 3 cards. And it's like, yeah, that's, you know, that's fine, but
yep,
it's
not that great.
It's not going to be enough against like a dedicated graveyard deck. You know, it's going to be good against the sort of value graveyard deck, but like your Purify the Graves are not that good against Mulch and Grizzly Salvage. You know, you're going to have to do a lot more higher impact things to the graveyard, like Tormod's Crypt, which I did see a couple, or the best card is Rest in Peace.
Online, I've been trying out a few things, looking for a standard deck I enjoy. Haven't found one of those yet, but I'm sure that it probably exists. Maybe I'll go green flash it up, you know?
Yeah, seems good that match.
The decks that I have tried, I've been working a little bit with Dark Naya, which is just, you know, like a Naya deck splashing for Rakdos to return.
I was going to say, what are the black cards? Just
and a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. I think I have like one of those right now.
Aristocrat's like the best black card, so that makes sense.
The Rakdos return are really how you swing around that Jund matchup. Although now that I've been playing the deck a bit, I actually think it might be better to just splash Restoration Angels and do a Jund deck. As amusing as that sounds,
instead of
splashing the good black cards, I'm just like, well, I'll just play all these black cards and, you know, go with a more control-y deck rather than just trying to like sort of pseudo tempo people with my Avacyn's Poker.
I mean, that is legitimate. Restoration Angel is quite a powerful spell.
Powerful magic. The other deck that I've tried is Jund Aggro, or Experiment Jund, as people like to call it, but replacing the Rakdos Cacklers, which I think are pretty underwhelming in this metagame, considering how aggressive many of the matchups are, with Deathrite Shamans to get that extra percentage against Reanimator and also be able to play life game.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's good in just every matchup. Like, it's unbelievable against Reanimator. It like accelerates your stabilization and has like the endgame activation of gaining life to pull you out of reach against aggressive decks. And even against control, it like is